Space, the final frontier.
Hello listeners, we're back with a special guest in our virtual studio. Today we have Dr. Philip Plait, aka the BadAstronomer, an internationally renowned author, astronomer, and lecturer. His blog, badastronomy.com, has just been rated by Time magazine as one of the top 25 blogs on the internet. Time says his blog regularly battles the misuses of science in daily life, in addition to praising the wonders of legitimate research. Hello and welcome, Dr. Plait.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
As our listeners know, this show is intended to present and promote a skeptical view of the world, to show why it's necessary and what dangers arise from a lack of skepticism. For you, what does it mean to be a skeptic?
Well, for a lot of people, what they think of when they think of the word skeptic is someone who denies something or someone who's cynical. But that's not really it at all. A skeptic is just someone who wants evidence. If you present an idea, we don't just believe you. The idea is that you need to show us what evidence you have for that claim. So if you say, a ghost visits me every night, and I'll ask you, what evidence do you have for that? And you say, well, I see it. And then I can say, well, studies have shown that when you're waking up and you're half awake and half asleep, it's easy to see stuff like that. I need photographs. I need more evidence than that. And so that's what it is to be a skepticism. It's not to deny stuff. It's just to ask for the evidence. Probably the most ironic thing about being a skeptic is when people say, you're a skeptic, you're closed-minded. And in fact, we're quite the opposite. We're open-minded. Somebody who believes in one of these things typically is closed-minded to the idea that they might be wrong. Whereas a skeptic is always, in the back of your mind, always thinking, am I wrong about this? And if I am, what is correct? We want to find out what the truth is. And so therefore, you have to always be open to new evidence.
Do you think there's a moral weight upon those who propose these pseudosciences? I notice you've written a few articles about the anti-vax movement and the deaths that have resulted from this movement.
That's been something of a soapbox for me lately because it's getting to be a much stronger movement. Jenny McCarthy, the ex-actress, or I guess she still is an actress, is promoting the idea that vaccines are linked with autism. And we are completely sure they're not. All the studies show they're not. And yet she and other people who are strong in the anti-vax movement are saying things that are demonstrably incorrect. And what's happening is we are seeing the effect. Vaccination rates are becoming lower in places like Australia, places where people are getting fewer vaccinations, and we're seeing measles outbreaks, whooping cough. There's a whooping cough outbreak in New South Wales, which is where Sydney is. I mean, this is not some backwater place. This is an urban area, and kids are dying. A little girl died of whooping cough very recently because she was too young to get vaccinated, but there were not enough people in her area who had been vaccinated, and you lose the herd immunity, this idea that if enough people are vaccinated, there's no place for the disease to live, and it goes away. Because the vaccination rates were low, this poor little girl got whooping cough, and she died from it. That's the result of uncritical thinking, of believing in stuff without looking at the evidence.
Do you think that vaccination should be mandatory?
Oh boy, I don't know. And that's one of those things where that's a difficult decision. It's for the good of the public to have a 90 to 95% vaccination rate, and you're talking about saving lives. But it's no different than the arguments about wearing a motorcycle helmet or forcing people to wear a seatbelt. You're infringing on their liberties, and is it legal or is it correct for the government to legislate things for your own good? And we do that all the time, but at some point it becomes a difficult decision. And honestly, I would need to really think about that and hear both sides, because right now I don't know. I think you shouldn't have to vaccinate necessarily, but it's the right thing to do. And the problem is, that it would all be great if everybody did base their actions on all the evidence and what is the right thing to do. The problem is people don't. And so then you have people dying, and so it becomes a very difficult decision.
I mean, there's been a lot of aggressive education to try and counter the anti-vax movement. What else do you think can be done?
I don't know, to be honest, because these people the people who are anti-vax are not weighing the evidence fairly and coming to a rational decision. They're basing it on things like, I gave my 6-month-old daughter a shot and now she's autistic. And so it's not something, it's not a rational decision that's been made. And I'm not saying it's irrational and crazy. I'm just saying rational meaning it's not based on the evidence. A lot of things happen at the same time as other things. You can eat a sandwich and then the mail comes, but that doesn't mean every time you eat a sandwich the mail's going to come. Vaccinations are given around the same time that symptoms of autism arise. That doesn't mean they're related to each other physically. It just means that they happen around the same time. So it's very difficult when somebody has made a decision based on this sort of faulty logic to reason your way out of it. And so these people aren't crazy. They're not stupid. They're just being human. And so when something like that happens, it's really hard. We all have, I hate to say beliefs, but ideas that are based more on emotion than rationality. And, if somebody tried to convince me that Doctor Who is a terrible show, I would argue against them. It's a great show. I love it. But that's not a rational argument. It's one based on emotion. And so it's a very difficult one to win.
I remember listening to NPR's Science Friday, and they had a caller come in, and they did the same thing. They said, well, with this evidence, with that evidence, is there any evidence? And they said, no, there was no evidence. I can understand that kind of problem. You've created the blog, BadAstronomy.com. Is that one of your ways of trying to fight this, well, not this movement in particular, but ignorance in general, perhaps, or the
scourge?
Yes.
Yes, that's it exactly. I started the website back in 1993. I got the domain name in 98. And it was basically just to counter myths and misconceptions about astronomy. It grew and grew. I started a newsletter. And then back in 2003, I think it was. I should really try to find out when I started it. No, it was 2005. That's right. I started the blog. And then in 2008, for those of you keeping notes at home, Discover Magazine, basically they bought the blog. They made me an offer, and I moved it over there. And so now it's hosted. It's actually blogs.discovermagazine.com/badastronomy. And if you go to badastronomy.com, it takes you right to my blog. And it's more than just astronomy now. It's science in general. I fight against creationism. I fight against the Anti-Vax movement. All sorts of things. It's whatever I think happens to be important, and that I have enough information that I feel I'm comfortable talking.
This stuff is far! You ponder the universe and a look comes across your face. You try to fathom distances of all the stuff in space, but you can't wrap the bacon of your mind around the big of all the terms required to describe how big is big. So let me get specific and use words scientific. Go whip out your thesaurus for this exacting chorus. This stuff is far. It's really far. This stuff is far, far.